One of the gaps for me was I wanted to create a lot of money. So I left the company that I was working for, and I started a company on my own, and my friend said you could start working with me because she was making a lot of money doing the same thing that I was going to be doing. So I just started working about 6 months ago, and I made a couple sales, and I made a lot of money. And so we're going to have to expand this company because she thought I was just going to make a couple sales, but now I can see I can make about 20 and make a whole lot of money. So now we're building up this company. Well, it's her company, and I'm in her company, and I see the possibility for a lot of money, and that's a gap I've always had. I always wanted to make a whole lot of money. But all of a sudden, in the past week and days as I'm preparing to come here, I'm looking, do I even really want to be working with her? She's got a lot of expertise that I can learn more about what I'm doing, but she bosses me around. And I don't like being bossed around. I can learn from her. I could stay with her for another year or two. But meanwhile, I'm going out, I'm working very hard, and I'm working very well, and I'm going out and getting customers, and I'm giving people these contracts to sign, associations and law firms, these contracts to sign, but it's all under the name of her company. So even if I decide to leave in a year or two and open up on my own, I've gotten 50 or 100 clients that I've solicited under the name of her company, so I'd have to go back. So I'm struggling with, do I want to say to her, gee, I know we could make more together, or I know maybe it would be an opportunity or a trail together that I don't know and would...
Well, here's a question that we would put to ourselves if we were standing in your physical shoes. So, working with her provided me the next logical step. In other words, it was this logical place that I could step to, and it was a good choice. I could tell when I made the decision it was a good choice by the way it felt and by how easily it unfolded. I could tell that I was going with the flow. And once I stepped into it, I could still tell I was going with the flow because the sales came relatively easy and the money came relatively easy. And so I can tell that from where I was before and what I was asking for, that when I made the decision to go with her, that I was moving in the direction of what is waiting for me over there in vibrational escrow, because it unfolded well. So now I'm asking myself the question, is this platform, which really is a platform of stability and well-being, are the benefits of this platform of stability and well-being outweighing the annoyance that I get because she bosses me around? So I will imagine myself stepping away from her, and therefore stepping away from that platform of stability and friendship and flow into an environment where that's not there, and maybe I've got my own security going now, only you will know. And now I'm absent of her bossing me around. So does it feel better in the absence of her bossing me around? Do I feel more secure in making that move? Does the feeling of security outweigh the feeling of irritation? So now, that's one way of going about that, and we'll give you the answer to that. We can feel that the security and well-being of the platform that she provides far outweighs the annoyance of her bossing you around. In other words, we can feel that powerfully in your vibration already. But then we want to say to you, there's another way to approach this in light of what we've been talking about already here today, and that is it possible for me to receive the benefit that I receive from working with her and tune out the bossing me around? Can I approach her bossing me around? We'll just wait for you to open that. It's all right. The crackling is coming through on the microphone. It really is all right. We don't mind waiting. She's trying to be quiet, so it's taking a very long time. Can I ignore the crackling paper? Or does the crackling paper take my undivided attention? Do I have to make a big deal over the annoying thing? Or can I step back from it and focus upon the greater thing at large? In other words, what we want you to understand is that if you leave there because she annoys you, then that's still active in your vibration. And the next place you go, there will be something else annoying. And the next place you go, there will be something else annoying. You didn't know you were going to get in on the seminar, did you? And that you're the something else that's annoying, by the way, in case you didn't.
It's better than being asked the question.
The next place, there will be something else annoying. But if you stay where you are and focus upon the things that really matter, so that the things that really matter are what are most active in your vibration, now it doesn't matter. You just tune all that other stuff out. We suspect that there's something else going on. It's not just that she's annoying. It's that you're wanting to prove yourself. You're wanting to get off on your own. You're worried that she might have other limiting factors. You're worried that she's not dreaming as big as you're dreaming. In other words, there are other things that we can feel pulsing in the vibration in there. But if we were standing in your physical shoes, we'd stay right where we are, and we'd clean up our vibration, and we wouldn't think in terms of doing something different. We would just appreciate the heck out of what's going on where you are, and then understand that in everything that you're living, you're asking incrementally for things to be more and more the way you like them. And as long as you are appreciating where you are, the universe will yield to you another and another and another and another avenue. The thing that we're really wanting to say to all of you is, you do not need to jump from where you are into something else with action. If you could make peace with where you are and just look for reasons to feel good where you are, you would automatically begin to move into the next phase of your life that will more adequately accommodate all of the things that you've been asking for. It's not about, should I do this or should I do that? It's, how should I feel about what's happening now so that I will allow the universe to yield to me an even better unfolding? Did you hear that? People will say, should I leave this job? Should I leave this marriage? Should I leave this relationship? And we say, don't leave anything in terms of action, but just leave the parts of it out of your mind. Tune out the parts that are annoying while you amplify the parts that you are adoring. And what begins to happen is sequence of events and circumstances just begin to reveal themselves to you, so that you effortlessly just move into better and better and better and better, much in the way that you moved into this. You're on the right track.
Okay. So the one question I do have, when you said something about you think that I have more of a question about, will I be able to use all of my talents? Or you said, we think you would have more of a question about, is this the place where I can grow the most or use all of my talents?
It doesn't feel, we think that you're using the fact that she bosses you around as your excuse.
Right, I got that.
As your excuse to try to go find a place where you can be in charge, where you can,
right,
where you can be the reason for it happening, where you can have more control over what happens.
Yeah.
It's a quest for control, and we want to say to all of you, you already have absolute control. You don't need to go someplace else to get more control.
Right. I got that part, but did you say that there's other things that I also want that I'm afraid I can't get there?
Well, things like bigger percentages in what you're earning, and greater creative control, and more hands-on about what happens next. In other words, it all falls into that category of control. In other words, you trust yourself to treat yourself better than you trust anybody else to treat you.
Okay.
You trust yourself to take better care of your clients than you trust anybody else to do.
Okay.
It's about that. Something
okay, yeah, because there is something about that, because we had a commission structure, her part and my part, and she said to me that the way that we had decided didn't leave her enough money. So I said, great, let's change it, because I knew it had to work for her, work for me. So we're in the process of changing it, and then I have to decide this weekend and then talk to my accountant on Monday and then like that. So if I make X amount, she's going to make a larger part than she before, which I want her to make, but I don't know how much she should make of what I make. Like, what am I giving her this big lump sum for, and what does she do? You know, I'm not sure what percentage.
Well, that's the thing that we can feel. It's like, I don't want her to get more than her fair share of what I'm creating. That's that feeling of control that we were
Yeah,
talking
like if
about.
I did it myself, I keep it all myself. Why do I need to?
That she was the stable platform that called me in.
Right.
And never mind that her expertise is what's giving me the security to do what I'm doing. In other words, from her point of view, she was the forerunner of the stream. In other words, she had the stream going. It's like anytime you're working with or for a company, they've already got momentum going, which you receive the benefit of. In other words, there's benefit in that momentum. And here's the thing that we really want you to hear. Anytime you're questioning how much somebody else should get, in other words, when you get into that competitive place where somebody's getting more than their fair share and what they're getting is depriving me, there is a no-win proposition that is happening for you, because in that lack-based vibration, you're pinching off future selves. In other words, if you really beat the drum of that, you'll stop. Here's the best example of that we have ever witnessed in physical form. So a woman sat in the hot seat and was talking about her now husband, who had a former wife. And her now husband was supporting her and their children well. But the former wife, every time he'd make a little more money, she would go to the courts and petition for a higher percentage of what he was earning for her. And so it seemed that every increase in his salary went more to his ex-wife than it was going to his current family, and it was very annoying to this current wife. And we said, we wish he had 10 ex-wives, all doing exactly the same thing. And she said, why would you wish that upon us? And we said, because as he is sifting through the contrast, and he has this family that he's supporting, and that family that he's supporting, and that family that he's supporting, and all of these ex-wives and children who are asking for things, and they see him as the vortex through which it comes, they are summoning powerfully through him. And when he is relaxed and going with the flow, his income is increasing because of the desire that they are pulling through him. So we said, if he's making $100,000 and giving half of it to her, then he is taking home $50,000. And if he had 10 wives, now he would be making $1 million, and he would be giving $500,000 to them, and he would have $500,000 to keep. In other words, when you understand that the flow is infinite, and it doesn't matter what percentage the government takes in taxes or what percentage your coworker takes in commissions, when you understand that your flow has nothing to do with the percentage they take, it has to do with how much you will allow to flow to you and through you. So now, see yourself as someone who is highly productive, and see your co-partner as someone who is really rooting for you and really wanting you to thrive and succeed. And feel the difference in her attitude if you are joyfully sharing in the profits of your endeavors, as opposed to begrudgingly sharing in the profits of your endeavors. In other words, see her as a cooperative summoner of the energy through you and a supporter of your vibration, you see.
Well, you know, she is, okay?
We know she is.
She is. I mean, she is. Where I get hung up is like, okay.
Where you get hung up is believing that there is a finite amount of money that you can earn. You think that there's a limit to what you can earn, and that she is taking a bigger percentage of it than she deserves.
Here's where I get hung up, okay? But even before that, it keeps me from hearing what you're saying. If she's out shopping and I'm on the phone and I make 15 brand new sales that she never made before, had nothing to do with the company, she didn't even know the people, and I made the sales, what do I need her for? That's where I get hung up.
Well, you don't need her. But she was at one time the next logical step. And if you walk away from her because something else is the next logical step, that's entirely different than if you walk away from her because she's taken more than she deserves. In other words, if you're going towards something, you're going with the flow. If you're pushing away from something, you're going against the flow. We're not trying to get you to stay or go. We just don't want you to go with that negative emotion within you, because if you go with that negative emotion within you, now you're in a new place and you've shot yourself in the foot. We just want you to be called to what's next, not to push away from someone undeserving.